This is Geek Gab with your host, Dornall and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Saturday, May 27th, 2023. Ah, May. It's I was gonna say summer's almost here, but I think it's technically summer now. May Day was the start of summer, or
Well, depends on how you reckon it. The official start of summer is going to be in June.
oh, so summer is almost here. I was right.
Yeah, in terms of culturally summer, Memorial Day's coming up. So this is it. This is the last hurrah of spring. Summer movies come out. People go on their Memorial Day vacations.
There is a glut of movies that I want to go see to like review. Fast X is out. Fast 10, Fast and the Furious 10. There's Guardians of the Galaxy
Rumor
3.
has it that Vin Diesel says the word family over 300 times.
I'm not surprised. You know, um, that the movie with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck where he plays the super math genius whose name I can't remember because my brain
Goodwill
is fried.
Hunting.
Goodwill Hunting. They say the F word like 187 times in that movie. Not an exaggeration. Literally like 187 times. So if you had told me he said the word family 187 times, I would not have even questioned. I would go, oh, really? Well, that seems a lot, but there's precedent.
This is great. Actually, you gave me a great idea. What if we did a whole show, a whole movie or a whole television show, and replaced every instance of the F word or a place where you might use the F word and have the character say family instead?
Ooh. Oh, that's
What
right.
the family is going on in here?
Because those are two different F words. I didn't even catch that. Right over my head. Wow. See, folks, that's why I have a co host to catch the things that I sometimes miss. All right. Um, oh, while you tell me how your week was, I'm going to see what else is out that I wanted to talk about, maybe reviewing. Oh, yeah. Ant-Man and the Wasp has hit Disney Plus, so I'm got to review that. Citadel's last episode, there were only 6 this season, hit this week, and I didn't watch it because we had a guest coming on today because I didn't want to, review it before our guest.
Hey, we were mentioning the seasons. We're worldwide. Uh, good morning to Australia. It's autumn there.
Oh, yeah. Winter's coming in Australia. I was literally thinking about that just yesterday.
Is Australia far enough south to get proper snowy winters?
I'm pretty sure they get snow. They're pretty far south. They're about as far south
See.
as America is north.
I know they're not. I know Australia's not exactly tropical. I think of it as a barren wasteland at all times, with spiders and snakes that are always trying to kill you.
Yes, but it's a barren wasteland with snow. Um, so Bert Kreiser's The Machine is out. I probably won't be able to see that for a while until it comes to streaming, but I actually did want to see that. It looks terrible, but I want to see it. Um, let's see. Oh, you're showing me all the garbage. Wow,
Queensland's subtropical. Thank you, Mercurius. I'm too lazy
what,
to pull up Google Maps.
what's subtropical?
Queensland, the
Oh, is that on the
part of
northern part of
Australia.
Australia?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how was your week?
Hey, I can't complain. My week was pretty good. I I foolishly poked my nose in and at World of Warcraft. It's been 5 years or so. Wanted to pop in and see what that's like. Turns out no matter how much they change, it's all the same. Hey, what's up to the chat? I know I've got Bradford Walker's attention there. I can confirm. He did a bunch of posts on it, I think a year or two ago. I can confirm what he said. Like, if you're a new player jumping in, you'll find a ridiculous experience where you can't die, and all of the zones to play in become a gray, bland mush. Um, and I'm talking, it's chiefly a solo play experience, and I can't recommend it. But for people who played way back when, they overhauled a lot of systems in the latest expansion, and they brought back a lot of things that they got rid of that were very popular. Stuff like the talent trees from original WoW. They've returned in a slightly different form. Um, so there's a lot of good things I could say about those changes because I think a couple of them are pretty good, but the game itself, it's just not the same game anymore. And Bradford says Blizzard just ruined classic Wrath. I'm not going to find out. Wrath of the Lich King was my heyday. I have very fond memories of Ulduar. Ulduar is the greatest raid ever in World of Warcraft, possibly in all MMOs, but um, no thanks. I don't need to relive that. Let's see what
I
else. Oh, great news, sort of, from some of our friends. We were talking about this before the show.
I want to say one thing real
Yeah.
quick. I apparently was hypnotizing myself. I was pulling the wool over my own eyes because there are literally two movies in the theaters right now that I want to watch to review. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and uh, Fast X. And all the other ones I'm waiting for to hit streaming because I didn't get to see them in the theaters. I was trying to fool myself that there were movies I should have known. It's 2023. Why would there be movies in the theaters that I would want to go review? I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. That's it. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go be sad over here while you do the news. Oh, he disconnected. I can't even be sad while he does the news. Oh, we had two pieces of news. Um, John's internet is died. Oh, last week we had Hans G. Schantz on, who was talking about his illustrated novel. Oh, are you back?
Hey, I'm back. We thought
No.
our guest was going to have the technical difficulties, but it's me.
Hans G.
Lost.
Schantz came on the show last week, and he was doing a Kickstarter for his illustrated novel, his that was, it was the Scopes Monkey trial updated for the modern era, a show trial. It's called The Wise at Heart, and we linked to the Kickstarter. And between last week's show and today, it got funded. So, he was all excited. And then Kickstarter shut it down. They took it away because it offended, likely someone made a complaint We don't know because they won't say. They won't make a comment because, and we know they won't make a comment because the story of Kickstarter shutting this book down hit Fox News online and also The Blaze. So it's and he put it up again on another site called Fund My Comic. Honey Shunts did The Wise of Heart, and it funded in 2 days. 2 days it funded the entire over $6,000 funding goal. So it still has 5 days to go. But yeah, an incredible story. Obviously, he got a lot of attention because it hit, Fox News Online. And it is an example, once again, of the disreputable and shabby behavior of online big tech companies when dealing with books and other things that are outside of the approved political narrative. And I'm glad to see that he landed on his feet. He said he had a backup plan ready to go in case that might happen. He absolutely did. And, congratulations on getting the funding back. So now that I've done most of the news story, I'm going to turn it over to Dornall and see if you have anything else to add.
I don't really have anything else to add. I've added I posted the link in chat if you're interested, and if you're watching live on YouTube, I'm showing the Fund My Comic. What amuses me is the timing. That I'm pretty sure we're to blame for exposing him to whoever's going to complain, but also for getting more people to back it. So this is it. This is your path to success, is to hanging out with us on the Geek Gab.
Because we'll get you canceled. That's
because we'll get
awesome.
You canceled. Our no politics policy has not saved us, DW. Which isn't the purpose of our no politics policy. Just it's funny that it happened that way.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to mention before we get to the main event is, and I should have mentioned this last week, but Brian Niemeyer's latest book, Combat Frame Z-Strike Exceed, was also released. It's now live on Amazon. I got my early backer copy, and I read it. And wow. I believe I'm quoted as saying, dude, this is the last book in his space mecha action series. It ties up all the threads from all the other books and has grand galactic battles between giant carrier ships and planet, orbiting weaponry, and of course fighting robots with guns and laser swords. And Rawl is in the book. In fact, he's in the opening scene, and he does a lot of work. It's one of my favorite things about Brian Niemeyer's Combat Frame Exceed series is that when he does his crowdfunding, he gives his readers a lot of the ability to purchase perks that get them and their ideas in the book. I'm a little bit biased because I know about a lot of the characters and the people, so for me, it's personally fun when the first scene of the book is Rawl. His character's doing his thing, and spoiler, he lives, he survives, which is unusual for a Brian Niemeyer book. But you get to read that and you say, "Oh, hey, I know that guy. We've had him on the Geek Gab before." And my other bias comes in because I have not one, not two, but three mech designs featured in the story.
I was going to ask.
So I commissioned a mech for the story, and my mech from the previous story features heavily in the first half of the book, and the other mech that was commissioned in the story before that makes a cameo appearance. So I'm super biased, but here's something that's not biased. The uh, the pacing and the action are perfect. It is fun and exciting, and I've thought about this a lot because when you come into the end of a series, there's going to be a lot of characters that you don't know about, and maybe revelations that are going to go over your head. But the action's exciting enough, and the story's interesting enough that I think you could pick this up and just read it. Though I would start with Combat Freight Exceed S and read the whole thing. Highly recommended. Really good stuff. Brian Niemeyer is at the top of his game now in his career. So that's all I have to say about that. I can put a link to the Amazon page in the chat. Hanging out live, you guys can see the page. I recommend it. And that's all I got to say about that.
All right. So
shall we talk about more crowdfunded fiction?
I know of a couple of crowd funds that are running right now, but I'd have to look.
I was talking about our guest.
Oh, so, that's right. Our guest has a crowd fund running. That's why he's on the show.
Yeah, I thought he was just going to hang out and have us talk about talk about everybody else's crowdfunding things. Check out Gemini Man by J.D. Cowan, by the way. He thinks Brian does great stuff.
Hey, there's a secret project by Pylum Press. I don't know if it's secret or not, but there's an anthology that they're releasing that their editor has threatened to send me an advanced copy of. So I don't know if that's going to be crowdfunded or not.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I didn't know if my mic was live or not. But yes, as a matter of fact, I believe we have one of the authors in chat right now.
Ooh.
Not John Dacre, but yes, that is crowdfunded. I've got it someplace. But he might be able to provide the link to it, because it will take me forever to find it. But yes, that is in crowdfunding right now. There it is, Death Flex. It's Pylum Press's new Voices number 3. It features some authors who are not as widely known, not as don't have as much experience, but I too am going to be sent an advanced copy because I'm just that cool. But I don't know if that link that I just posted is going to work or whether you need to do something to make it a link, but that's it.
Well, I will say this. Oh, wait, I already talked about this last week. I literally did. We talked about this. I mentioned this last week when I talked about the Pylon Press offerings at the bottom of the show.
Mhm.
So I was out in front of myself there too.
In front of yourself.
Yeah. I'm so good, I'm better than myself. That's how good I am.
That's pretty good.
So I guess the other thing I have to say before we jump in with Misha Burnett here and his Small Worlds anthology, which is by Kursova Publishing, which is currently in Kickstarter in the last few days, is that we had the second session of the Caribbean Islands, the frozen tropical islands in Trilopolis campaign this last Thursday, and we're not going to talk about it today because we don't have time, but hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about it sometime soon, because it's been going really, I think it's been going really well.
Yep, we all seem to be having a good time. It's good to get back.
So I will say this also about Kursova, and I said this last week, so I'm going to say it again. Kursova Publishing has been every time they put up a Kickstarter, they have fulfilled it with monotonous regularity. They have established with me a reputation for, I mean, the one project I can remember being quote unquote late was like 2 months. And when you're talking about Kickstarters and Indiegogo campaigns being normally up to a year late, that's like normal lateness on Kickstarters. Most of them coming out on time. And me personally, I live in a time vortex. And I've moved, and the time vortex has moved with me. I get my package like 2 or 3 days after they ship. So it is practically, Kursova is practically fulfilling before the Kickstarter goes up. I don't know how he does it. So I would encourage everyone, if you're worried about whether about joining a crowdfunding campaign because of whether or not it's going to come out or whether or not it's going to be late, don't ever worry about Kursova, because Kursova Publishing has been incredible. Just it literally in a class on of their own.
Yeah, my man Alex, he puts in the work and it shows.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm going to turn this over to Dornall to. I just introduced our guest, didn't I?
Yeah. Took my thunder, stole my thunder. It's okay.
Well,
you didn't tell them what my name is.
Yes, I did.
Misha Burnett, welcome back to the show.
Hi there. I'm glad to be here. Been kind of a crazy week, but I have been looking forward to this. So I am not a self promoter. I am not a people person, and so I always kind of sweat when I have a Kickstarter going on, and I'm like, oh God, I got to be on all these different shows. But I like you guys, so and it's fun to see my usual suspects here. Hi, Raleigh. Hi, John Dacre, JD Cohen, Bradford. I don't know everybody, but yeah, we are coming fire on Small Worlds. We have got 95 backers. I would love to get 100 over the next 4 days, but we'll see what happens. This is, I actually looked it up. This is Kursova's 21st project on Kickstarter, and yes, I know.
Wow.
But so and as you say, he's always fulfilled on time. I am very hesitant to back Kickstarters or crowdfunded projects for people I don't know because I've been burned a number of times where they just stop updating and then you never hear anything again, and it's like, well, it makes me very sad, but I think possibly because Kursova comes from a background in music, you'll notice that it's Retrovirus Records is the name of the account. He's used to he's used to the music industry, which is a little more unforgiving, especially in the punk music scene. So. So yeah, he treats it as a business. He treats it as a serious thing ever since the. Oh, thank you. Hey there, Mere Curious. I cannot even try to pronounce that. I appreciate that. But even from the very beginning, from Kursova #1, which one of my stories was in. Thank you very much. He's always said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this as a business. This isn't a hobby. This isn't a whim. And over the last 10 years or so, I think he's proved that to everybody's satisfaction. As far as my own project, this one, Small Worlds, which I suppose I'm supposed to be talking about, it's kind of scattershot. When I started doing short fiction almost exclusively, which I've got 4 novels out, but since then I've been doing short fiction. I said to myself, I want to do a science fiction and a fantasy and a horror collection. Those were, and I did those 3. This one is a mix of everything. There's science fiction, there's fantasy, there's horror, there's weird tales, there's kind of sort of lit RPG in it. I kept trying to, because it's a genre I find fascinating. I kept trying to write it, and I kept drifting off into the Twilight Zone, which is something that that happens to me a lot. So it's a little more difficult to pitch. As I was saying before the show started, An Atlas of Bad Roads, my horror collection, was one of the most successful Kickstarters that Kursava's ever run, and part of that was because there is such a vibrant and active horror community for short fiction. Horror short stories have always been there's always been that market for it. And this, it's kind of more, I've been trying to do my elevator pitch, and it's kind of like, well, there are a bunch of different stories about a bunch of different things. My tagline, as it were, for Small Worlds is that small worlds need saving too. And I try to do kind of intimate stories, although ironically they're also very long stories. These are mostly novella length, particularly. I mean, that's in strong contrast to Atlas of Bad Roads. That's horror tends to be very short. You want to get in, get out, and These I've got more room to kind of laze around and look at the scenery. Um, I'm rambling here. I don't know if you anybody wants me to go in a particular direction, or I just gibber mindlessly. Um,
I like it.
one thing that I did want to point out that is kind of indicative of my profile as a writer is that in addition to this project, I have got three upcoming projects that I've got stories in that all of which will be launched fairly soon. There is the J. Laggy Lamplighter, who does small publishing, has been doing this series on fantastic schools, which are kind of, I wouldn't say an alternative to Harry Potter exactly, but it's just taking that idea of a school that teaches magic. And a lot of different people are going a lot of different directions in that. I myself have got the story set in my Dracoheim universe, which is the one that Bad Dreams and Broken Hearts, which is kind of uh, 1960s LA with magic and dragons. Um, and I thank you. Um, and but I took the idea of a trade school for magic. This is basically the Vatarat um, for people who are not going to be wizards but are going to be technicians and Igors, technicians in magical labs. So my character is you know teaching basically HVAC only magic. Anyway, so there's that story. The other one is also going to be another Kursova project, and that's going to be the Mighty Sons of Hercules, which will be launching, I believe, in July. That that are stories based essentially on Italian drive-in movies. He had this idea that apparently in the 70s and 80s, I guess, maybe even earlier, I think it's 60s and 70s, there were a series of Italian B movies about, I'm not sure it's pronounced, Makista, who is the son of Hercules. And it's these sandals and sorcery, this guy out in the desert with, big pecs and shirtless and running around in a loincloth, who goes and beats up evil wizards and punches out camels, and is this massive. Anyway, so he decided, let's do a bunch of stories on that, and I was one of the authors. He asked because we worked together really well, and so I've got that going on. I've got this kind of pulp B movie aesthetic collection. And then the third one is for Jay Mansfield Witchell's um, uh, Tales to Make You Vomit. I am one of the first people to be invited into the Vomit verse. And he's done several of these over the top body horror, deliberately as offensive as possible collections. And he asked me to submit a story. So he's actually going to be doing his first multi-author collection. Yes, that's the one. So there I am. I've got like young adult magical school thing. I've got B movie Hercules, and I've got offensive body horror. I don't I don't really stick to anything cohesive or coherent. I just whatever strikes my fancy, and so
So you've got an eclectic collection.
yeah, that's kind of And this one here, to give you a brief rundown on what I've got. Several science fiction, one Twilight Zone, man who gets phone calls from the past, and it's deliberately never explained what exactly is going on. I have got, and I'm very pleased with this, I have got the first officially authorized Chalt fan fiction. Um, I've got a story called My Grandfather's Grandfather's Bald Goddesses that is set in the RPG world of Chalt. I interviewed um, Venger Satanas,
Venger. Yeah.
yes, of Cathorlis Publishing a couple of times, and I said, hey, I like your Chalt books, I like your Chalt world. Would it be okay if I wrote a short story? And so I wrote it and sent it to him, and he gave it his nihilus obstat and said that I could go ahead and so there is an official Chalt tie-in short story in Small Worlds.
Love it.
So yeah, I'm excited about this. I'm always excited about my projects, and I'm also always nervous. I'm scared to death that this is going to be the one that people are going to read it, and they're finally going to realize I'm no good, and everybody's going to hate it, and they'll throw rocks at me, and because that's just my personality type. But the people who have read it have said that it's good. Alex obviously said it was good because he publishing the thing. I spoke with the editor and the proofreader, and he said he liked it. So and
If
I've
people
actually
keep buying your books, you must not be that bad.
apparently not. Apparently not. I'm not. I don't have my own mountain with an underground shooting range or anything, but Um, So I'm not a truly successful author. I'm just kind of a marginally successful author. I think actually, if I am remembered at all, it will be in a footnote to the Kursova story, because he's going to go places. I don't know where, but he's definitely going places. So yeah, that's where I am, and keeping busy, working my day job, doing all kinds of interesting things.
Hey, even the Grandmaster of science fiction, John C. Wright, has a day job.
And the people that I consider my inspirations, my like George Alec Effinger and Philip Dick and Samuel Delany. Most of them either basically starved and lived royalty to royalty, or had some kind of full-time day job. I believe that Tim Powers, who I consider to be the absolute master of American fantasy, still carries a full teaching load, and pays his bills as a university instructor instead of just as an author. So could be wrong about that, but
I heard that there's only about 1,400 full-time paid authors in the United States.
1,400.
Yeah.
Wow, that's and to think that Chuck Tingle is one of them. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think I ought to see if I could do something like that, something really just dreadful, just to make money. But I figure if I'm going to do a day job I don't like, I might as well do something I at least am good at. So if you need a locksmith in Missouri, feel free to give me a call.
So, all right, I get I think that was sort of a shotgun blast of all the different stories and the different types of stories in there. Do you have a favorite?
Yes, actually, I do. And it's funny because my favorite now, looking back at the collection, was the one that I least enjoyed writing. Um, and that is This Green and Pleasant Sky. That is about a restaurateur. He owns and runs a Cajun restaurant in New Orleans, and runs up incredible amounts of debt, and basically goes to bankruptcy court, and they say, we'll pay off your debts if you enlist in the Space Force and go work on this farming asteroid, um, sending food back to Earth, and so he gets sent out into this asteroid, and it's kind of no offense to Australia, but it's kind of an Australia situation. PDK also had a drug problem, yeah. That uh, the other people who are working this particular asteroid are all prisoners from this maximum security prison in Florida, and it's a woman's prison. So he is the only man with 11 women who have not seen a man in several years. But the sexual tension is very minor compared to the issue that none of them really knew how to run the station, and it's on the verge of ecological collapse, and he basically has to go in and try to fix things for everybody. But it's one of those stories. It's hard to explain what it is that I like about it, because story wise, it's not. But it's the personalities, it's the people. Once I got into it, and like I say, it was really tough until I had the ending figured out, which I usually don't do until I write it. I kept putting it down, and it probably worked on it over the course of a year. I'd work on it a little bit, and I have no idea what to do from here. So I'd set it down and pick it up later on. But yeah, I'd say that one, This Green and Pleasant Sky, is my favorite. But that's like subject to change. I go back and forth all the time with that, and I always feel kind of embarrassed admitting it, but I love rereading my own work. And even more than rereading it, I love hearing the audiobooks. I've got a narrator that gets me. Brandon McKernan, his name is. He's done all my books, and I don't have to explain anything to him. I don't have to say, well, in this scene, so and so's feeling this, and so's. He gets it, and he just reads it like I hear it in my head. It's magnificent, and I do a lot of driving for my job, and I have been known to just be stressed out, and I will put one of my own collections or my own novels on Audible and listen to that, and it calms me down. So
That's
I'm
great.
not sure what that says about me.
I think that's probably unusual.
It is, because most people are like, "Oh man, I never go back and read my own work." Oh, you're just not as much of a narcissist as I am. But I mean, I also always I have a real problem with good enough. I am a perfectionist, and that actually gets in my way a lot, because they always say that perfect is the enemy of good, and all that. But I will spend hours going back over. There's a apocryphal story about Oscar Wilde where he spent all day writing, and they said, well, how is your writing going? And he said, well, this morning I put a comma in one of my poems, and this afternoon I took it out again, and that's kind of the way I do it. I've been known to, spend days on a single paragraph. Um, Obviously, I spend time doing other things and working and petting the cat and whatnot, but you know, I
Well,
try
sure. I
to.
mean, you're an artisan plying his craft. You could hardly be blamed for wanting to optimize your even things like a sentence. One
I
thing that you said that was interesting that I really wanted to dig deeper on was about your favorite story. You said it wasn't necessarily about the story; it was about the characters. Is that typical for you? Is character the way you like to think about or experience stories? Is that
Oh,
a
absolutely,
common?
yeah, and how I operate as a reader too. It's the people that I always say that if you want me to read your work, then I don't care about the world. I don't care about the flashbangs and the what I is people. Give me a person that I care what that happens to them, and that's what all of my and even in stories, because I've got some stories that I never even give the character a name, but hopefully I give them a personality. Um, is that if I don't care what is going, if I don't care who the events are happening to, then I won't care what's happening. And a lot of science fiction and fantasy, unfortunately, is all about the big ideas, and it's like it's not the big ideas I care about. It's the people, it's the individuals, it's the you know
You like to create that weird science fiction setting, but the setting itself, it isn't what interests you. You want to see, all right, so now I've put this poor sap in this asteroid mining colony, and let's see what happens.
right, and it's the whole point of having or like the another one, 284 miles to empty is what I called it. um, is a man who's doing a long cross country drive for work, and he keeps getting calls on his cell phone from this same woman. At the beginning, it's a little girl, but and it's one day for him, but he's getting call every hour or so that are like 4 or 5 years apart in her life, and and I like the idea, but mostly it was, well, what if this happened? How would that make you feel? How would you react to that? How would you deal with it? And again, that's why I generally don't put a lot of detail in about my people, because I want you to be able to put yourself into that position. If this was me, what would happen? If I was this person, and people talk about the superversive movement and uplifting stories, and uh, what my goal is that for a reader to read one of my stories and say, if I was in this situation and I did what this character did, I'd feel good about myself. And I guess that's my benchmark for if I'm writing a good story.
I love it. Um, so another thing I like to talk to writers about is the way they write, and and I'm sort of getting this weird dichotomy from you because you care a lot about the technical details. At the same time, it sounds like you don't extensively outline your work. It sounds like you don't, or you said you don't know the ending until you actually get to it.
I don't
So
outline at all. I
you don't
don't.
outline you don't outline at all. So what's your how does that square with your perfectionist tendencies?
Um, I mentioned that I don't write a lot of word count, right? It's because I don't do drafts. I just I kind of hammer out a word at a time, I guess.
Hmm.
And my problem with outlines is that um, no battle plan survives encounter with the enemy, and it's on a very small chunk level that I work. I don't work um, in big chunks. I work in little chunks. This happens, and then, well, okay, looking at this happening, what happens next? Um, and it's like I'm exploring a cavern with a flashlight, and I can only see, a few feet ahead of me at a time. And I've mentioned several. Sometimes I do know. There's a couple of stories where it's like, okay, yeah, I know the ending, and I want to get to that. But usually, it's just let's follow this and see where it goes. And and it's process. It's a matter of taking the next thing and what, because I think that can be lost. I think if you've got a big picture outlook, if you've got a I want to go from here to there outlook, um, and something you encounter something along the way that would divert that, you tend to just bulldoze through it or paper over it or um, um, I don't. And so that's where plot holes come from, because you just kind of go too quick to the exit, and you don't. I don't tend to run into plot holes because I tend to take one step at a time, and rather than get to the end of the story and think, oh, wait a second, back in step 14, they should have done this instead of that. And This isn't making any sense at all, is it?
I get it.
I mean, for example, in one of my novels, there was a secret scene when my main characters are holed up inside of this um, old medical building, and there is somebody in the front parking lot who has got um, he's got a gun that launches electrified frogs. But but the point is that he's got a weapon that they have to find a way to flank him. And I wrote in my mind this big strategic scene where some people would go this way and some people would go that way, and they'd find a way. And then I realized, wait a second, what about a back door? And so I didn't use any of my big battle scene that I had outlined in my head, and it just had them go out the back door. And it's that kind of thing, that kind of, you know, wait a second, stop us. What would the person logically do in this? And that means that a lot of stuff that you see in cop movies or thrillers, where the detective is going mano a mano with the mad killer, and wait a second, you got a whole department behind you. You're telling me that you couldn't take to call the station house and get a load of blue suits to go with you. um, let's think about this reasonably. Let's think about this logically. And as I've said, um, sometimes doing the real world logic next thing that would actually happen, it can be the most surprising thing of all, because people are used to the story beats, the tropes, well, of course, they're going to arrange this big showdown. Well, big showdowns don't make any sense. And don't even get me started with the crawling through the air ducts. That doesn't happen in the real world. I tend to be very
Who fits in those anyway?
hamsters. That's who fits in them. And it works for me, I guess. But like I say, a lot of times people are surprised because it doesn't follow the set story. That's in this type of story, this always happens. Well, screw that. Um, if dragons were real, then what would happen? If spaceships were real, well, I mean, spaceships are real, but I mean, if starships were real, what would actually happen? Um, and that's kind of, it's good and bad to it. It makes me a very annoying person to watch movies with. Fortunately, my roommate is who is a real forensic files fan, also does the same thing. So we'll be watching some movie on Netflix or whatever, and both are like, no, that didn't happen. That couldn't happen. That doesn't make any sense. They wouldn't do that. All that. So
Simply cannot watch any crime movies or mysteries.
yeah, I mean, they're just so ridiculous, so absurd.
Oh, you're that guy.
I'm totally that guy, and because I've got a background in building maintenance, I know how elevators work. I know how air conditioning works and how fire alarms work. So many times, oh, we're trapped in the building and can't get out. Well, no, actually, you just have to push the panic bar. You're outside. And maybe it sets off an alarm, but you're still going to be able to leave the building.
Mm-hmm.
I will quote you chapter and verse on fire codes.
So, do you, so do you find yourself avoiding those situations, or do you force yourself to write a sort of here's how it would actually happen in the real world version
Oh,
of that?
I like taking the tropes and hitting them with a cold water, saying, "Oh no, in the real world, this would happen." And that's fun for me, and that's I like, and frequently just simply by following what would actually happen in the real world, you do send it to turn these tropes on their heads. You do surprise and astonish the audience that oh wow, somebody actually thought of that. You know, car chases, okay, there's such a thing as roadblocks, there's such a thing as calling to the next jurisdiction over and having them block the road so that and maybe it's not as exciting, but it's a lot more real.
That's one of the things that the Dukes of Hazzard actually did on several occasions is they had a sheriff of the next county over who would come out and set up a roadblock at the county line.
Right.
And he was this big, imposing, guy. He wasn't like Roscoe P. Coltrane. So, you'd think that a show based around fantastic jumps and car chases would just not do that. But they had roadblocks in that show, and they had people in the next county over come
right, which is why it was, their edge was that they knew the territory and they knew the back roads, and they could anticipate, oh, hey, they're going to be set up on a highway, so we're going to go down this this little farm trail that nobody else knows about. Meandering and losing focus. Yes, well, that's kind of my signature style. But I've talked about the Joe's sandwich is, I guess, how I get around not having an outline. And the Joe's sandwich method is that you've got this character Joe, and he's hungry, and he wants to get a sandwich, and then something happens that prevents him from getting it. But if you stay focused on the sandwich the whole time, then you always kind of have a direction to go. My formula is somebody who has a reasonable goal and encounters an unreasonable obstacle to it and has to find a way around it. Burrito Avenger, yes.
That's a real book.
Yeah, I've heard of it actually.
The guy wants to get a burrito, and bad guys try to prevent him, and he has to go through hordes of bad guys to get his burrito.
Yeah, and that's the basic. That is, in all seriousness, a very relatable. We've all been hungry. We know what being hungry is like. We know what being scared is like. We know what being in love is like. And there's this idea that there's got to be some kind of overarching huge. Once again, this is my reaction against bigness in fiction. There has to be saving the planet, saving the world, but no, actually those aren't. People don't ever really want to save the world. They just want to carve their initials in it. And I don't trust people who have got big, overarching, this is how we're going to save humanity. It's like, tell me how you're going to save yourself.
Go
Tell me
clean your room.
What you want. People want shelter. People want clothing. People want their cats to stop bothering them. Whatever. And stay grounded, stay in what's real. And that's what I think, that's what stories, that and my other big motivation is it's my job, what is, because I hate the cop show trope that, the killer is targeting, the members of this police officer's family, and that's why he's going. No, he's going after him because he's a killer, because that's his job. That's what he does. I have this image of somebody calling 911 and saying, "Oh, there's a psychotic killer out to get me," and the 911 operator is like, "Well, which detective is related to you?" "Well, I'm not related to any of the detectives." "Well, I'm sorry, we don't have anybody available to help you then." Just because that's what you're supposed to do. Not rocket science. I always, whenever I do one of these things, and I think I mentioned in the, before we went on the air, that I hate doing these things. I just ramble, and then later on I listen to it, I cringe, and I'm like, what the hell was I even talking about? So please, somebody figure out something
This is one
rational for me to talk
of my
to.
favorite parts of the show because no, it is good. It is great talking to you, Misha, and sometimes I just let you have just enough rope to hang yourself.
Well, I believe I've done that.
No, I was actually looking up what you were talking about. Reminds me, and I'm not sure I have the brain power to tie it in appropriately, but this reminds me of a tweet that you sent. You know what you were talking about, like living in the real world and everything. Um, this tweet about your job where you're called to fix a door and you're faced with this empty storefront. You know, this building's in the middle of being demolished, and there's never mind a front door. There's no wall there, right?
Yes.
Um, and what you were thinking of, like living in the real world or something like that. And this and uh, in your last collection, an atlas of bad roads, which I read a few stories in. Um, it gives me that same vibe. You aren't looking for the guy who's trying to save the world or whatever. You really you live. I think you personally live in this sort of strange reality, and reality itself is strange. But like this is your life, you know, and the comment here about your story about the missing front door. Why Misha Burnett is good at writing horror. He lives every day in the shadow and at the whim of mad, blind gods. You just want to take those spaces and put these people, put these characters in it and see what happens, right? Um,
Basically, yeah.
like that's your style. And I think anybody who likes horror or anybody who likes weird fiction or strange fiction or fantasy, I think they recognize that. And I think that's why you for all your, you know, self-deprecating humor, that's why you have found your audience, because people recognize that and they say, yeah, that's interesting. That's a unique perspective. That's a great setup, and I want to see what happens to those people as well.
And it's the same kind of oh, thank you. Um, the it's kind of a daydream, you know. It's kind of a, you know, going through your daily life, and everybody thinks your daily life is boring, and but it's like, well, what if something just completely off the wall happened to you right now? What uh, how would you react? How would you? And that's kind of what I want to be. I want to give people. I want to give people, you know, a feeling of it could. It's, you know, make life a little more interesting. Um, that this could happen to me, and this would be exciting, and this would be fun, and this would be scary, but I'd feel, you know, vindicated when I got through it, and, you know, got out the other side and the other, you know, in one piece, and saved the pretty girl, and all that kind of stuff. Because that's what fantasy is for. That's what it's. And I wax philosophical on the whole subject of fiction and what it means, and, you know, the uses of art to human consciousness and all that kind of stuff. Um, but uh, but it's just to give us a chance to experience something outside of our regular reality. But in order to do that, it has to be grounded. You have to start with the wood chopper's hut. You have to you can't just have it off in the middle of nowhere. It has to be grounded. Otherwise, how is the person reading it going to be able to feel those things, to experience those things? You know, and I like stories about ordinary people that are just suddenly thrust into extraordinary events, and which I think is, you know, where all of the old fairy tales come from. It's not, you know, looking back at our 21st century perspective, you know, we think of wood choppers and shepherds and even kings and princesses as being, you know, extraordinary and fantastical, but they weren't to the people writing them. They were just, you know, Joe down the street. And uh, that's what I do.
Well said. Well said. I think it's about time we start wrapping up. War Pig, last chance at questions for Misha.
Actually, he answered the questions I had.
I know. I was queuing up questions at the beginning of the show, and Misha went right through them all without
That's
even
because I can
asking.
read your mind.
Oh man, what am I thinking right now?
I'm not going to say that on the air.
Very good. Very good.
I don't have any questions for Misha, but I do want to. I don't know if we mentioned this. I do want to congratulate Raleigh in the chat, who is. Oh, I'm scrolling. Raleigh has a story in one of the upcoming Fantastic Schools books as well. So, congratulations to him.
I love this little corner of fiction. Even as someone who doesn't really read much. Really cool guys.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't read. I feel bad. I don't read half as much. I did read it. He sent it to me. I don't read half as much of people I know as I should, and I feel bad about that. But I feel bad about a lot of things. I get over it. I am really looking forward to the new Pylon Press and seeing seeing John Dacre's new fiction. He's got another. He's had a couple. This will be, I guess, the third. I'm guessing. I know he was in Kursova. I know he was in the Corona Chan anthology. So he's somebody to watch. You need to have him on your show eventually. I just need to poke him a little bit to do more self-promotion. Poke.
Absolutely. Hey, Misha Burnett, last words.
More light. Sorry, that
Good
was
words.
Goethe's last words, allegedly, and I think they're great. Sorry.
Well, I hope everybody listening live really enjoyed the show, and people who listen later. This is the end of the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter ends this weekend, so if you haven't backed Small Worlds by Misha Burnett and Kursova Publishing, go check that out on Kickstarter. If you're listening later and it's already been passed, check it out on Amazon. I'm sure it'll be available. And check out Misha's other stuff, Atlas of Bad Roads. Like I said, I picked that up. I already backed Small Worlds, so I'm looking forward to more of your weird stuff.
Thank you.
So I hope everybody likes it. And I really appreciate everybody listening on to the Geek Gab. And hey to everybody in the chat, lively chat today. Love you guys. I'm going to sign off for this week. Daddy War Pig, the floor is yours.
Okay. I want to say thank you for everyone who listened live, and thank you to everyone who will listen later. This has been Geek Gab for Saturday, May 27th, 2023. You can catch us live just about the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on youtube.com/geekgab. That is youtube.com/geekgab. You can also subscribe to us on the Google Play Store. We're on SoundCloud.com, and we are on the iTunes Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab. Download us on the device of your choice onto your computer, or you can listen to us on the web, because we're happy and friendly people here. You can't see me smiling a big wide grin, but I am. Okay, folks. We are signing out for today, but don't you worry, don't you fret, we will be back.